A lot of families that I talk to don't dance around this idea anymore. They don't say, we're thinking about maybe living near each other one day. They say very clearly, we want to build a family compound. And what's interesting is how calm and matter of fact they are when they say it. They're not chasing a trend. They're not trying to make a statement. They're thinking about parents getting older, kids well into their 30s and 40s now who might want to come back someday. And they're thinking about how hard it is to stay connected once life starts pulling everyone in different directions. So when they talk about a family compound, they're picturing shared land, separate homes, and the ability to be close without being on top of each other. There's a main house, a place for aging parents, room for adult kids to build later if life brings them back. And here in rural Southeast Tennessee, that idea, it doesn't feel abstract. It feels possible. But I was recently at a property where this exact vision played out, and one of those adult kids is now selling their nearly brand new home. And that means that a stranger could be moving onto that land that was bought with family in mind. Now, that's not a tragedy, but it's also not what anyone pictured when they first bought the land. So before you buy 10, 15, or 20 acres with that vision in mind, there are a few decisions that matter more than most people realize, not just financially, but in the long term. And stick around because I'm going to walk you through one decision that's nearly impossible to undo later. And it's something that most families don't think about until it's too late. I'm Chris Roberts, your Southeast Tennessee relocation realtor, and I help people from all over the country relocate to Tennessee right here in Cleveland and the rest of Southeast Tennessee. So if you're thinking about buying land for a family compound or you're just researching what life in rural Tennessee could look like, I've got a free relocation guide that's linked right below, and it's going to cover everything from healthcare to schools and fantastic food. And if you want to talk through your specific situation, go ahead and fill out that form to schedule a call with me or text me right at the number that you're going to see on the screen in front of you. Now, when families use the word compound, they're not usually talking about something extreme or dramatic like underground bunkers or 10-foot tall concrete walls. They're talking about shared acreage, multiple homes, and enough space that everybody still feels like they have their own life. This isn't about constant togetherness. It's about easy proximity. Sunday dinners that don't require a 45-minute drive. Grandkids running between houses without a schedule and parents nearby but not under the same roof. The best versions of this aren't tight or crowded. They actually feel pretty calm. And that balance between closeness and independence is the theme that runs through every successful compound setup that I've seen. Because once land is purchased, the land will start making the decisions for you. One thing that I think about often when walking larger tracts of land here is that families living together on shared land, it's not a new idea in this region. Long before modern property lines, surveys, and zoning maps, families lived in close proximity. They shared resources and stayed deeply connected to the land itself. That history, it also carries real weight. This part of the country is tied to displacement and loss, including the Trail of Tears, and it's important to acknowledge that. I don't bring this up to romanticize the past. I bring it up to say that the instinct to live this way down here doesn't come out of nowhere. What's different today is that we're building these ideas inside of the modern rules, and that's where thoughtful planning really matters. Okay, here's the thing that most people miss, and it's the advice that I wish more families had before they bought their land, and that is parceling the land out. Specifically, whether you divide the land into separate parcels before you build or keep it whole and figure it out later. Now, I'm going to keep this very high level on purpose. You don't need to become an expert about this. You just need to know what questions to ask before emotions take over. Some families parcel the land early, right after they buy it, so that each household has clear ownership, independent financing options, defined boundaries from the start, and their own address, which matters a lot more than you might think. Others wait because they're just not sure yet who will actually build, when they'll build, or how their needs might change over time. Both approaches work, but here's what matters. In many parts of rural southeast Tennessee, depending on the county and the zoning, agricultural land may only allow for 2 dwellings per parcel. So if you buy 20 acres as one tract and want to build 3 or 4 homes, you might run into a wall. But if you parcel it out early and say have 4 separate 5 acre parcels, each one can support its own home. Each one gets its own address. Each one can be financed independently. And if life changes down the road and one of your kids decides to move on, that home can be sold separately without affecting the rest of the property. That's what I mean when I say that the land will start making decisions for you. Once your home is built, your options, they get really narrow, and the order of operations affects taxes, financing, resale, and even family expectations later on. Here is another decision that quietly shapes everything. Do you plan for each home to have its own septic system, or are you going to explore a larger shared system or alternative wastewater setup that supports multiple dwellings? This is going to impact cost, maintenance, independence, and future flexibility. A shared system can work beautifully and it can save some money up front, but it also ties households together in ways that people don't always think about at first. Particularly if someone sells, the new owner is now part of a shared maintenance agreement. Again, the goal isn't to decide everything immediately. The goal is to make sure that the land you're buying doesn't quietly remove options that you may want later on. And while we're talking about septic, here's something that should always happen during your due diligence period. That's soil mapping and the percolation tests. These tests are going to tell you whether the land can actually support a septic system and what type of system that you should install. And if you skip this step up front, you might end up with a property that has no good way to handle wastewater, and your options are just going to be expensive. And that's not a minor inconvenience, that's a deal breaker. So always make sure that the septic is part of your contingency period before you close on the land. Okay, here's where it gets real. Family compounds are usually built with permanence in mind because most of us know life doesn't always stay permanent. Kids grow up, careers change, relationships evolve, and sometimes people just realize that they want something different. As I'd mentioned before, where I was recently at a property where a parent had bought about 20 acres, built several homes for their kids, and now one of those kids is ready to move on. And this is where the reality sets in. A small cluster of homes designed for shared family life can feel very specific to the open market. It's not that someone else couldn't buy one of these homes, it's that the buyer pool is just going to be quite a bit narrower. For the seller, that can feel emotionally strange. For the buyer, it can feel a little awkward stepping into a space that was built around a family dynamic that they're not part of. And for the family still living there, it means that they're having a neighbor that they didn't choose. This doesn't make the original decision wrong. It just means that design decisions are also exit decisions, whether we think about them that way or not. And this is why I keep coming back to parceling and independence. When each home can stand on its own, when ownership and responsibilities are very clear, it makes transitions a ton easier. The healthiest compounds function beautifully together, but they still work if someone's path takes a different turn. From what I've seen, family compounds tend to work best when a few things are true. One is that each home can stand on its own, meaning it has its own utilities, its own access, and its own space. It doesn't rely on someone else's driveway or septic system or their good mood. And responsibilities are clear. Who owns what? Who maintains what? Who pays for shared infrastructure like roads or wells? Shared spaces are intentional and not assumed. Maybe there's a shared barn or a garden or a fire pit area. That's great, but it's designed, not just expected to work itself out. And flexibility is built in from the beginning, with the compound working as one, whether everyone lives there or not. So, what could this actually cost? In rural southeast Tennessee, places like Benton, Decatur, northern Bradley County, Polk County, you're looking at roughly $200,000 to $500,000 for 10 to 20 acres, depending on the location and how close you are to town. Closer to Cleveland or Chattanooga, that number is going to go up. To build, you're looking at around $200 to $230 a square foot right now in 2026, and that's going to depend on the finishes and the complexity of the build. So if you're building a 2,000 square foot home, that's going to be roughly $400 to $460,000. Multiply that by 2 or 3 homes, add in the site work, the septic system, the driveways, the wells, utilities, and you're easily talking about $1.5 to $2 million project. That's not a small investment, and that's why we're getting the foundational decisions right. Parceling, zoning, waste management, all of that matters so much. The goal isn't to plan for things to fall apart. The goal is to respect that people will change. And when you build with that in mind, you're not just creating a family compound, you're creating something that can adapt. This approach can be wonderful for families who communicate well, they share a long term vision, they value proximity without the pressure, and can handle change without conflict. It can be a little more challenging for families who need firm boundaries early on, are navigating unresolved dynamics, or they expect everything to stay exactly the same forever. And that's not a judgment, it's just honesty. This type of situation amplifies what already exists, it doesn't fix it. The way I think about land is this: land doesn't lock you into one shape. It's just going to provide a framework. So, when chosen thoughtfully, it can support closeness, independence, and change all at the same time. And sometimes the smartest first step isn't buying land at all. It's just slowing down and talking through what you want that land to support. Not just this year, but 5 or 10 years from now. So, here's what I want you to hear: this is totally possible. And there are ways to do it that protect everyone financially, emotionally, and legally. You don't have to figure it all out alone. If you're thinking about building a family compound in Southeast Tennessee and want to talk it through, I'm always happy to have that conversation. Go ahead and click that link below to schedule a call with me, and we can talk through your specific family situation, what you're hoping for, and what you're worried about, and whether this idea makes sense for you. My number is going to be right here on the screen in front of you, so let's make sure that you get this right. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all things about life in Southeast Tennessee. And be sure to check out this playlist right here to learn more about living your best life in Chattanooga and Southeast Tennessee.